What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I'm coming to you off a rather nice weekend. You see, this weekend I was at home, I was with the family, and when the family went to bed, I got my new Hulk hero pack, and I played a bunch of games. I played a lot of games of Hulk over the weekend, which means I feel pretty confident coming in and giving you a review today. If you want the too long didn't read it, Hulk is a great hero in some situations and kinda useless in others, making him very challenging for solo play, but he can be a beast in multiplayer and he does stuff way better than a lot of the other heroes we've seen. So starting off with Bruce Banner, I love Bruce Banner. Hit points of 18, huge, hand size of 5, we expect 6 on an alter ego, so that's actually annoying, and recovery of 4 is very high. Now, he does have an awesome action that lets you draw a card and then discard a card from your hand. Doesn't give you a card advantage, but it allows you to cycle through your deck a little bit more quickly than you would otherwise be able to. Plus, high recovery and high hit points sounds good to me. Now, Hulk on the face of it looks weird. Thwart of 0. You can't thwart. You cannot remove threat from the main scheme, which seems bad. But you do have hit points of 18, which is huge, attack of 3 and defense of 3. You've got really good stats here. Except for the thwart of 0. Oh yeah, and you got a hand size of 4. Hand size of 4 is terrible. Hand size of 4 means any kind of hand disruption whatsoever is gonna lead to some very, very bad things happening. Some very bad things happening. I don't like it. It also means that there are going to be turns where you can play like one card and that's enough. And you've got attack of 3, you've got defense of 3, you've got 18 hit points, that might be fine. Just something to bear in mind. It's also important to note that you've got a forced interrupt here. When your turn ends, you discard your hand. And this can be good and it can be bad. It's not one or the other. The bad thing here is you cannot stash cards in your hand. You cannot do that thing we all do where you keep a card in your hand going, next turn or the turn after, this is going to be huge. I'll wait till there's one more threat and then play this. No. You lose all your cards. The good news is it lets you cycle through your deck more quickly. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that when you run out of your deck, you do get an encounter card, which can be bad. But it means that if you're looking for specific cards, and as we're going to see, you often will be, you are going to be able to find them much more quickly because you're cycling through your deck more quickly. So what we end up with is a very strong, very beefy, very defensive or aggressive character that cannot thwart, has a low hand size and cannot keep cards in your hand. But there are a lot of things here which are just going to be able to make you smash. I mean, we got 2 copies of the card Limitless Strength, which is literally a resource card that gives you free physical resource in hero mode. We've got Boundless Rage that gives you an extra +1 attack, although you do have to discard this card when you go back into alter ego mode, because you can only play it in hero form. But again, that puts you up to 4 attack, which is kind of dumb. Immovable Object gives you +4 hit points and Retaliate of 1. If you can get both those upgrades on, then all of a sudden Hulk has 22 hit points, an attack of 4, and deals a damage when you get attacked. If you can get both those, and I didn't manage it in many of my games, but if you can get both of those upgrades on at once, Hulk becomes even more ridiculous. And then you bear in mind we got the card Unstoppable Force that readies Hulk, but if you played with only physical resources, you get to draw a card. And it is worth bearing in mind that all the Hulk cards, not every card in the Hulk pack, but all of the Hulk cards, i.e. the Hulk summing out of 15, they all have just physical resources on, which is kind of awesome for this. And then we've got Thunderclap. Choose up to 3 different enemies, deal 3 damage to each of them. For 3 resources, it's not great when there's only the villain out. But if there are multiple allies out, or you're playing against the Wrecking Crew, where you start with 4 villains on the board, Thunderclap becomes awesome. Oh yeah, and then we've got Hulk Smash. When you make a basic attack, you get +10 attack. +10! And if you paid with just physical resources, as we've seen you may well want to do, or have to do, this attack gains overkill. So if you attack into a minion, you take it out, but all of the excess damage goes on to the villain. And, I mean, there's a combo here, right? There was a game I played against the Wrecking Crew where I'm sitting there and Wrecker's looking at me with like, what up, I got 14 hit points. And I played Boundless Rage, just spending one of my other cards. And I've got a Limitless Strength, which I use to pay for Hulk Smash. And then I do a basic attack for 14 turn 1 and just take out Wrecker. Literally just take out Wrecker in one hit. And Hulk will do that, incidentally. We've seen the kind of cards we've got here. There will be plenty... If you play a bunch with Hulk, there will be plenty of times you just take out a villain in one turn. It's kind of ridiculous. Now, we've also got Crushing Blow here, a one-cost event. Now, you've got to pay with physical resources, but you deal damage to an enemy equal to your attack. Again, if you've got Boundless Rage down, that is a one-cost 4 damage attack. That is redonk. Now, it is really interesting to note here that a lot of these are expensive, but very powerful, and you do occasionally run into the issue of the villain's got a tough token, and you can do like 14 damage, but you've got to go through the tough, but you don't have any way to ping for 1. Because you can play Hulk Smash and hit for 14, but then you don't have enough cards in hand to play anything that just lets you ping for 1 damage. Now, I should mention at this stage, I am largely reviewing this just the deck out of the box. There are so many different ways you can play this. Obviously, you could build it with some pinging cards to take away the tough counter. We're going to talk a bit about the problem of not being able to thwart, but you could play Hulk with Justice. It would feel wrong, but you could play Hulk with Justice, and that would then allow you to have lots more thwarting options. Now, there are a couple of cards in the Hulk pack, as in just the Hulk cards, which do give you a bit less of aggressive way to play. Banner's Laboratory gives Banner +2 recovery. You've then got recovery of 6, which is ridiculous, especially with your giant HP. But there's an alter ego thing here that lets you exhaust Banner's Laboratory and generate a science resource, which is kind of cool. Although one thing to note here, because you cannot thwart normally, if you don't have cards in hand that can take away threat, spending a turn or two in alter ego mode letting the villain scheme could be what loses you the game. And that's kind of tough, so do bear that in mind. We've also got Suborbital Leap here, lets you remove 3 threat from a scheme, or 5 if you paid using only physical resources. Now, on the one hand, this is really good for getting rid of threat, and if you play this at the right time, you can just smash, 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 threat builds up, boom, Suborbital Leap, smash, smash, smash. But then you run into the problem that Hulk discards his entire hand at the end of your turn. So Suborbital Leap is exactly the kind of card you would want to hold in hand, so that you could play it in a turn or two when the threat built up enough to make it worth playing. But you've got to play it now, or you're going to discard it. Hulk will lead to some super awkward turns. Now, out of the box, Hulk comes with an aggression suite, and I would feel bad playing it with anything other than aggression. Although you are welcome to do so if you wish. And there are some good cards there. The best one among them is Sentry. Sentry is a phenomenal ally, probably my favourite ally we've had so far. Now, the 4 cost is expensive, and you do have to deal yourself an encounter card when you play it, which sucks. It's a really big downside. But you've got a 5 health ally that takes 1 consequential damage when you thwart or attack. To put it another way, you'll get 5 turns of use out of Sentry, and you can thwart for 2 or attack for 3. Now, thwarting for 2 is awesome. If you're in Hulk mode, this basically means you thwart every other turn and you're good. But also attack of 3, combined with Hulk's attack, combined with all the other cards that deal damage, this can lead to some just ridiculous turns. The other one I love here is Dropkick, a 3-cost event, but hopefully you can pay this just using Limitless Strength. And what it does is deals 4 damage, But if you paid using only physical resources, you also stun and you draw a card. Bearing in mind Hulk is someone who often wants to stay in hero mode, because going to alter ego mode and letting your opponent scheme when you're not allowed to thwart can lose you the game. This is awesome. You make your opponent take a turn off from attacking while dealing 4 damage while drawing a card. I mean, even without anything else, this really means that the villain is taking 10 damage, 3 from your attack, 4 from this, 3 from the attack after they've got unstunned, before they actually have an opportunity to attack again. That's kind of hilarious. Toe-to-toe allows you to... well, you have to be attacked. But then you deal 5 damage and it's a 1-cost event, so that's often going to be totally worth it. There are a couple of cards in the Hulk pack normally which do let you remove threat. You'll pay for that is a 1-cost event. After the villain attacks you, you remove 1 threat from a scheme for each damage you took, up to a maximum of 5. And the good news is your gigantic HP will often mean it doesn't matter that you take that. But then, by the same token, remember, if you're in hero mode, you're going to have a hand of 4. Well, this might be a 1-cost card, but you've still got to discard another card to pay for it. Which means if you play, you'll pay for that. You're starting next turn with a 2-card hand. That is not going to give you many options next turn. The other one we see is just 3 copies of To the Rescue. It is a hero action that lets you remove 2 threat from a scheme. And it's a very vanilla-y, it's a very basic card, literally and figuratively, but it's actually one that really helps you out in a lot of games. Even with the cards I've shown you here, there are too many turns where you don't have a good option for removing threat. Especially if you spend any time in alter ego mode. Because you see, in hero mode you can't thwart, so you are relying on cards like Sentry, like To the Rescue. And if you don't have them at the right time, bearing in mind you have to discard your entire hand every turn. And Sentry, if you've got a 4-card hand, you've got to have a card that gives you more than 1 resource, or you literally can't pay Sentry because you'll only have 3 resource to pay for a 4-resource card. And you're discarding your hand every turn, so that means that there are literally going to be turns you've got Sentry, but you've got to go to Banner in order to play it, or keep it in your hand so you can play it next turn. But if you go to Banner, your opponent's going to scheme too much and you can't remove it. Or you're going to want to recover. But Banner's not going to let you do that without taking too much threat, and that's where we end up in trouble. In a multiplayer game, Hulk's amazing, because you can just go into Banner and recover a bit and let the other players deal with the threat. You ignore the threat, and you just become this absolute monster dealing huge damage, occasionally recovering, and just going back to dealing huge damage. It's amazing. In solo mode, Hulk becomes a very, very challenging character to play, because there are going to be turns where I either have to discard a card, which I really don't want to discard, or take more damage than I can really handle, or I flick into alter ego mode, and then I get to recover and keep my cards and have a larger hand size and have that really good skill, etc. But then I end up taking a bunch of threat onto the scheme that I might not be able to remove. Now, I do need to give a shout out here to the obligation. It is, I feel fairly confident saying, the meanest obligation we've seen in the game so far. The vast majority of the obligations you can just, you know what, I'm going to exhaust my hero and get rid of it, they're done. That's not an option you have with Inner Demons. Inner Demons makes you flick to your other mode, bearing in mind if you've got like Boundless Rage, you will lose it. You have to flick to your other mode, and then one of 2 things is going to happen, and it's not up to you, incidentally, because it's set by what mode you're in, and it makes you flip. You have no choice. If you are Bruce Banner, you discard 2 cards from your hand, and that's kind of annoying because it means you will start your turn with 2 cards. Because remember, if this flips you to Banner, you must have been Hulk, which means you've got a 4-card hand. You lose 2 cards from your hand. You're starting with a 2-card hand. That sucks. Or if you're Hulk, you just exhaust, but you discard the obligation. There's no option to remove it from the game like you usually have. Thematically, brilliant, because Banner can't get rid of the Hulk, but that is harsh. Also, the Nemesis Encounter set is kind of mean. You see, Abomination 2 scheme 3 attack 6 health. Well, the attack is kind of huge, and also after Abomination attacks you, you discard the top card of your deck. If it's a physical resource, you take 2 damage, and bearing in mind you're playing largely physical resources, unless you remake the deck. So you'll often be taking 5 damage, or scheming for 2, but scheming for 2 is harsh because you can't remove the threat. Abomination is one of these minions, more so than a lot of others, where when Abomination comes out, you have to get rid of him. And if you've got Sentry, 1 attack plus Sentry, boom, done, but you might not. We've got the side scheme Total Destruction, where you cannot remove threat while Abomination is in place, so you got to get Abomination first. And Clash of the Titans, the enemy with the highest attack attacks a hero or ally with the highest attack. I got this 3 turns in a row in one game, and that, even with 18 health, it's really hard to get away from that. It also means that, yes, fine, you've got higher HP, but you're also going to be attacked a little bit more often. A couple quick observations to finish off the video here. Hand disruption hurts. There was one turn I was playing where my obligation came out, and my opponent had Radioactive Man on the field, and I lost 3 of the 4 cards in my hand, so I started with a 1-card hand, which kind of sucks. But also, stun counters can be harsh. There was a turn I was playing against Rhino and I got stunned while Abomination was out, and it let Abomination just go nuts and deal way, way too much damage, which was harsh. And also side schemes. The fact that you are thwarting so rarely here, and the fact that you cannot always remove scheme when you want to, makes side schemes very, very harsh. I played a couple of games against Claw, and one of the problems we find with Claw is that it's too easy for Claw to get side schemes out. And that's kind of harsh. I mean, Claw itself, you start with the Defense Network side scheme. And when you get to stage 2 of Claw, you get the Immortal Claw, but that gives an extra 10 hit points. But that puts Claw up to 28 hit points, which means you've got to try and take care of the side scheme, but it's hard to get rid of the side scheme because of your fairly limited thwarting. Also, sometimes if there's too many minions in play, it's another thing I noticed with Claw, because lots of minions, if there's too many minions in play, even though you can do a lot of damage, it can sometimes be difficult because you're playing so few cards during your turn. It can be difficult to take out all the minions. Of course, if you get yourself a Thunderclap, that is a little bit different. So, to surmise, I love playing as Hulk. I really enjoy it. It is difficult playing in solo as Hulk, but I love the challenge. And if you want someone to smash in a multiplayer game, Hulk's your boy. Although I do think this might have the biggest dichotomy we've seen so far of how good a player is, or a character is, between solo and multiplayer. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that's my experience with Hulk, but I'd like to know your experiences, so let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk about Marvel Champions and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.